Hi, I'm Steve Diggs, and welcome back to Insights. Tons of content at the speed of light. Today, I want to talk to you about a concept that I think you're going to find very helpful, especially if you feel like you're the kid in the milk-bone pajamas who's living in a dog-eat-dog world. If you can identify with this, what we have to say right here, right now, I think you're going to benefit from. Here's the deal. We need to remember that truly successful people frequently get there by going through a pile of failures. The thing is, failure can be the first step to true success. Now, Steve, what do you mean by that, and how does that play out? I can tell you that at this moment in time, I have spoken well over 1,200 times on one specific topic. Now, I speak on quite a number of different topics, but in our No Debt, No Sweat seminar, I teach personal money management. And here's what I know. I know that today, roughly some 70% of all Americans are struggling with their money on some level or another. I know that research is now telling us that over 50% of all divorces say that money is the leading cause for that trouble. But here's what I've seen through these years. I've seen that people, in many cases, who have been the worst failures with their money, when they get sick and tired of being sick and tired and they simply say, I don't want to live like this anymore, that's when they are determined to develop the strategies, the skills, and the disciplines necessary to turn the thing around. And today, some of the more financially capable and settled people that I know, in some cases not very far back, just a few years ago, were the very ones that were struggling with the most debt. But like I said, they just got sick and tired of it, and they said, no longer. My life is too short, my relationships are too dear, and my walk with God is just too important. I'm not going to live like this anymore. So with that said, let's talk about how this failure can lead us to success, not just financially, but in all sorts of ways. To do that, I want to go back to that golden age, mid-century last, the 1950s. That was a pretty good time in America. All kinds of great things were coming along. I mean, we were being captured tele-attention-wise by shows like Danny Thomas, The Tales of Wells Fargo, Gunsmoke. It was also a time in America when we launched our first Earth satellite, Explorer 1. It was the era when the New York Giants and the Brooklyn Dodgers both grand slammed their way out to the West Coast. This was a good time in America. But at the same time, there were some people who were struggling. It wasn't a great time for everybody. So let's go back to this and let's talk about one of those great struggles of the late 1950s. 1957 was the year that the Ford Motor Company decided to introduce a brand new car. Now, they told us that this new car was going to be the innovative niche filler for an entire generation. But alas, it didn't work out that way. You know who I'm talking about here, don't you? You know which car I'm talking about, right? Yeah, the Edsel. Now, Ford did not come out with the Edsel in 1957 and 1958 planning to fail. No, they expected this car to be a huge success. I mean, everything about the car was special. There was a push-button transmission control in the center of the steering column. The name was chosen from over 6,000 names that had been entered by all sorts of people. Mr. Ford himself made a film where he said, I'm proud to tell you that the Edsel is here to stay. But like I said, it didn't quite work out that way. The Edsel was a huge failure. As a matter of fact, within 3 short years, Ford had shut down production on the Edsel. Now, why the Edsel failed, I don't know. Some people think it was, and there's still debate this. Some people say, well, the car was too big. Other people say, no, it cost too much. Other people say, no, that car didn't work. The hoods didn't close, the trunks didn't open, and that fancy transmission, that thing never lived up to its mission. Well, I don't know why the Edsel didn't sell, but I do know that at the end of that run, somebody described the Edsel sales chart as looking like a dangerous downhill ski slope because it was getting worse by the day. At the end of that entire run, Ford was in a mess. They could do one of two things. They could either sit over here in their pity puddle and feel sorry for themselves and watch the entire company tick down, or they could do what they did do, and that was to develop the strategies, the skills, and the disciplines that they needed to get out of this mess. And fortunately, like I said, Ford opted for number 2. And for about 40 years, Ford was arguably the most successful maker of cars in the history of the planet. Now, here's my point, and here's what we're coming to. Ford chose to turn that Edsel debacle around. They chose to go from failure to success. And you can do exactly the same thing. It's not easy, but it's a whole lot easier than the alternative. You see, the alternative is just to lay back in that pity puddle, blame other people. You know, I've been ripped off, I've been cheated, lied to, abused, prejudiced against, the cards are stacked against me, all this kind of stuff. Or you can step over on this side and say, yeah, I've been kicked around, abused, mistreated, all those same things, but you know something? I'm not going to let somebody else dictate the terms of my life. I am determined, I should say, to do things the way Ford did them. I'm going to develop the strategies, the skills, the disciplines that I need to go forward. Hard stuff, but very, very beneficial. Hey, by the way, this has been Insights. I'm Steve Diggs. This is where you can always get a ton of content in the speed of light. See you next time.